What's up, everybody? Let's spin some yarn. I've been weirdly thinking about this idea for a while. I did some assignments for school. For those of you that don't know, I'm going to school for organizational leadership. And it came up a few times where just kind of talking about the idea that in like today's day and age that like the whole fake news thing, like I hate that phrase, but it is what it is. It's something that needs to be talked about. The idea that it almost doesn't matter what you say, or even if you have evidence to support it, or like everything you would need to define a thing as factual or true. People will deny it based on ideological grounds, based on just being deluded, being unwilling to accept that it conflicts with their idea of reality. And it doesn't matter what you have as evidence or what you have to support your statement that a thing is true or factual. And so like that idea in mind, I was talking to someone today about like how he basically was asking me if I'm the type of person that questions everything and is constantly challenging everything, and but is like open to being wrong and to other people's opinions and ideas, and also that it's like I can exist in a world where two things are true, where like I think this, you think that, those are both okay, or that the thing that I say is true doesn't mean that what you say is false. You know what I mean? Like that, like it's okay for us to have two different ideas about a thing, and like but that doesn't mean that one of us is evil as a result, or that we can't just like coexist and disagree at the same time. And that was kind of like, that was the idea that I wanted to explore, was just that like when people get into arguments about a thing, many times it's because the person that like one person has to be wrong in an argument. Like you have to argue to win. And I hate that in a lot of ways. Not that there aren't times where you're arguing with some sort of a goal of accomplishing something. I don't even want to say winning. But I think that the value of discourse, argument, debate, whatever you want to call it, is in the actual conduct of the argument, where you're like having a conversation, and in finding your way down the winding road of that discourse, you can find yourself learning something. You can find yourself going in a direction where you don't think you were going to go, but that can provide a ton of value. Like I find myself in that position on this podcast all the time when I talk to guests, and I've had podcasts that just go places that I'm like, I had no idea we were going to go there, or like I didn't know we were going to talk about that. And I learn something, or like I'll say something and then I'll get pushback from somebody, or I'll get questioned or challenged. And it's just like, it's good, it's healthy, and it should be received that way. And I guess I didn't quite accept yet that my doing that is kind of odd, or at least rare, or whatever nowadays, or I perceive it to be based on the world, the state of the world, and like the state of the world's ability to have conversations like that and have discourse like that. Even though I find when you don't do it on social media and you don't do it on some stupid platform that puts you in that type of an environment, when you do it like on a long form podcast like this, or you're doing it on a phone call, or you just do it in real life, God forbid, I know that's scary. I find that you don't have the same conflicts and just like vehement disagreements and unwillingness to have a nuanced discussion about a thing that you see happening on social media, or you see happening on all these platforms, whatever, that you like people voice their opinions through. I think that it's really important. I've been spending a lot of time kind of just like contemplating what the world could become if this intelligent discourse and willingness to have a conversation, a willingness to be wrong, be open to others' opinions, be open to your opinion changing as a result of those opinions and discussions. It's like, if that goes away, where are we at? And then like even what I could do beyond this platform to like try to create an environment where it can happen more. I don't know. Like, I'm just really interested in the concept of and I'm really interested in what like other people think about it as well. So if anybody's ever interested in talking about it, I'm in. I would love to bring someone on and explore this topic further. As far as like how you perceive things and why, it seems like there's I've gotten in arguments with family members about things that are under that ideological umbrella of either the left or the right or the middle or whatever, where I'm arguing about one thing, and it's like they're unable to have a conversation where they're open to possibly be wrong, because for some reason that idea is linked to their entire ideology. And it's like, if they were wrong about that, they might be wrong about everything. And then, so then they start like, it's all tied to their identity, and that can't be wrong. So it's like, it's just like, it's impossible for them to be wrong about any of it, because if they're wrong about one thing, they're wrong about all of it. And it's like, that's not necessarily true. Like, separate it all. Like, it's not. And even just like when people think or actually do, I guess, that they think they subscribe to some type of ideology, whether it's political or social or whatever, it's like they think that because they subscribe to that ideology, like if they believe one thing, they have to believe everything. And it seems like there's I talked about it on another episode recently, where it seems like that their actual understanding of some of those things is like a mile wide and an inch deep. Like the whole ideology is a mile wide and an inch deep. There might be like one or two or three things, whatever, that they're actually passionate about and they have a deeper understanding of, but the rest of it that just kind of comes in the bundle, like they just subscribe to it because they're supposed to. It's like the team colors, basically. And it's so bizarre to me that like I'm a man without a country, kind of, in a lot of ways. And I mean that obviously I have a country, I've been serving it for 20 years, but I mean that in like a political or ideological, like metaphorical country. Like I don't subscribe to anything. Like I believe one thing at a time, and the conglomeration of that is just whatever you want it to, and it changes. Like as I learn and grow, like it changes. Like I might think one thing, and then I listen to a book, or I read a book, or I read an article, or I listen to an interview, and then I explore it further, and then I do research, and then my opinion changes because I didn't understand it as well as I thought I did, or something happens that changes it, or whatever. It's just the idea that you can't have a conversation about a thing, or like the warping of like nuanced discourse about a thing into like, oh, well, if you believe that you're just a bad person. It's like, it's super bizarre to me. And like, I don't want this to turn into anything political or ideological or whatever, as far as like a questioning of, what do you believe? Like, it's weird to even say like I have any super hard and fast beliefs about anything outside of like leadership stuff. Like, I mean, like just like treatment of people. 'Cause like I've obviously taken stances on this podcast about leadership development and education and all these other things, like how you should be treating people, how you should be leading people, how you should develop people, whatever. There's things I'm definitely passionate about, and there's definitely things that I think I'm right about. But there are also things that I thought I was right about that you could probably go, I mean, I've been doing this like 6 years. You could go back to the beginning of the podcast and you could see my stance change. An example of that is hands in pockets. I was like a definitely more hard and fast on it when I first started this, but as I've come to like, as I've discussed with people the idea of that standard and how that standard is unenforceable and why it's a bad thing to put out an unenforceable standard and how that's probably more detrimental to good order and discipline than somebody just putting their hands in their pockets. It's had my opinion evolve quite a bit. But that evolved based on my deepening my understanding of a lot of different things through nuanced discourse. It's crazy. I can't think of a thing more valuable than someone's openness and willingness to learn. Like I think that there's always more to learn, obviously. But the openness and willingness to learn, and the openness and willingness to, because there's things that I believe I intimately understand and have an extremely high and deep level of understanding of, that I have a hard time picturing my position or opinion on the thing changing, or my understanding of it changing like by a lot, but I'm open to it. If somebody smarter than me, or somebody with just like a different angular viewpoint that I haven't considered happens to come along and we have that type of a discussion, I'm open to it. And I think that that's an incredibly important area that leaders should work on, is the just maintaining the willingness to have a conversation, even if it's something that you think you're one of the highest level experts in the entire area that we're going to discuss. It's like, even if you just believe that you have this really deep, layered, like rich understanding of a thing, some seaman that just got here might say something or propose an idea based on them not having that understanding and not being so entrenched in all the things that surround that'll blow your mind. And it's like, being willing to receive that is gigantic. I was just talking to a kid the other day. I was doing an interview for a leading CS qual card for submarines. Yawn. And he brought up that he was comparing these two different chiefs. It was a 2-crew submarine, and one of them had been around forever, very senior guy, trainer, like MTS, been to all the places, done all the things, taught people how to do all the things. And then he was that kid's chief on his last submarine, and then he was retiring from there, right? So it was kind of like the definition of an old dog that you can't teach new tricks to, or just isn't willing to learn them. And I had some experiences with this guy too, and he just thought he knew it all, and he wasn't really willing to receive not only like new information, or wasn't willing to be taught anything else about it, but wasn't willing to hear criticism of the job he was doing, because what do I know? Because that guy knows everything, right? And then on the flip side of that, on the two-crew submarine, on the other crew, there was a young chief, had spent the beginning of his career, I believe, as a bosun's mate or a CB or something like that. And then back when PTS was a thing, that was performed to serve, he got force converted to CS, and that's where he made chief. And he'd been a CS for like 7 or 8 years. Very, very open and willing to learn, constantly asking questions, constantly asking for help. And this young sailor relayed a story to me where he said this guy would come down to the boat when he didn't even need to be there. And we call it owning the boat when you're the on crew. And when he didn't even own the boat, he would come down and constantly be trying to learn. And this other chief, that was the senior guy that was about to retire, was unwilling to teach him, which to me is absurd. So he would go to the second classes and the third classes that had dolphins and then had been around a few years and had been doing the thing. And he's like, hey, teach me how to do this. And it blew him away that this chief was like open to letting him teach him. So he did. He taught him everything he needed to know about a certain thing. And then at the end, he'd be like, hey, man, thanks. I really appreciate you taking the time to teach me this. And then he'd go on his merry way, this chief. And it's like that really made an impression on him as far as like when he's in a leadership position as a leading CS, which is the qualification interview we're doing, like how he wanted to be, how he wanted to interact with his junior sailors. It's a big thing. That's the leader that people want to follow, is somebody that's open and willing to have those types of conversations. And even if I'm positive that I'm right about a thing, even if like I'm just like, yeah, like there's just things that you just know. Even if it's that, I'm willing to listen. Even if I'm super unconvinced that my opinion could change, or that you're going to provide any new information that's going to change my idea of it, I'm still willing to listen, not only because I could be wrong, and I could be just like punched in the face by this whole new viewpoint that rocks my world. But also, it's an opportunity for me to teach, because in having that conversation, I can allow this person to try to change my mind. And in having that conversation, I could potentially change theirs by providing them information that they don't have, or a viewpoint or a context or just an angle they haven't approached it from, or just educate them on a thing that they didn't know, that they'd be like, oh, okay, now I understand why you think that way. And it's not about me converting them to my viewpoint. It's about me trying to help them understand a thing better. And if that brings them to the same viewpoint as me, hey, great. If it brings them adjacent or slightly adjacent, hey, great. If it just makes them dig their heels in and further disagree with everything that I said because they just don't agree, okay, that's allowed. Like, I hope it's based in your deepening understanding and like solid factual information, and not just like an ideological disagreement. But it could be that too. But being willing to have those conversations and being open to learning during those conversations is gigantic. I'm interested to hear from you all if this is a thing you've encountered, which I hope it is. How are those conversations going? Are people willing to have them? Do you think this is more just a thing framed by social media and just digital consumption of information and fake news and all that other wild stuff? That is more just like you see it on the internet, but in real life, everyday interactions, it's less prevalent? Or do you see it in your everyday interactions? Do you see people whose like outlook and approach to certain things gets warped by this inch deep and mile wide ideological adherence to their team values or whatever? I'm curious to know if it affects your daily interactions, or if it's It's something that in real life interactions you see that, like people have a lot more in common than they think. And so when they start having conversations with people they think that they might hate or disagree with or just don't like their ideas or whatever, when they actually take the time to start talking, they're like, oh, we're a lot more similar than I thought. And then they're more willing to have those open and like honest conversations. So, hit us up. Don't Give Up the Shit Podcast at gmail.com. You can Facebook message us, Don't Give Up the Shit Podcast. Or you can DM us on Instagram or Reddit at dgutspodcast, or just get on the Reddit thread and discuss the things. However you want to do it, whatever's easiest for you. Always interested to hear from you. And definitely interested to hear about this. Got some other stuff coming up soon, but I'm trying to get some more stuff queued up so that we're less behind, so there's no more gaps. But it'll probably happen at some point. Life happens, but as I transition into retirement, it should happen way less because I'll have more time to devote to this, and I'm excited about that. But that's it. That's what I got for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and don't give up the ship.